as he likes to be called, just putting on consistent performances after consistent performances. Second at the Latin America International Championships, I believe, last season, and then has just been dominating this season. I believe he has a regionals win.
Last season, he had 3 regionals wins, I remember, and then it was immediately shown up by Jimmy Pendarvis. But nothing to scoff at. Bert, of course, top 32 rather in Europe. So
22.
Top 22 rather. Didn't have to play day one at all. Both of these players. This is the matchup, again, that you could see in the finals of Worlds or in the finals of an international and just not even bat an eye at it, right? These are just 2 of the top players in the world.
Yeah, and we've been talking about Jimmy Pendarvis losing that round 1 to Robin and being 0-2, at least possibly out of the tournament. We have the exact same matchup here for you folks. It is that Oranguru Pidgeotto control deck versus the Mewtwo Mew GX Toolbox. So we'll see if both of these players have taken some advice from the players in round 1 about this matchup to see what they can bring to it.
Well, we were talking about that backstage a little bit while the Jimmy-Robin match was happening, which is, wow, what a bad beat for Jimmy, right? And a bad beat for all of this team on this deck. When you're saying, okay, I had a new innovative deck for Worlds, and a surprise factor is a big part of it. And then, wow, it got featured on stream, and on stream I lost because my opponent figured out how to play against it.
Yeah.
So, wow, and now everyone in the tournament, there's just rumblings. Oh, did you see what Jimmy was playing? Did you see what, Azul was playing? And it's going to be really, really difficult now for Azul to, there's no more surprise factor. That's been taken out. Let's see if he can just do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, unfortunately for Jimmy there, but Azul is trying to right that wrong and take a victory for this creative deck. And I love watching decks like it, too.
I love watching both of these style of decks. We have, on one side, we have the control deck, the slow, grindy, trying to win the game through alternate win conditions. And on the right side of your screen, we have that kind of toolbox deck, which is always, personally, something that I really enjoy watching because there's just so many different options. You get to see a bunch of cards you don't get to see in competitive play. You see some really weird lines of play. So this is going to be a really entertaining match.
Yeah, and there is a Cherish Ball to start off the turn for Bert here. And now it really is going to be interesting to see, first of all, if he knows what Azul is playing. Because typically you kind of go, all right, who are the best players in the room? What are they playing? Just so I know what I'm up against when I go against them. But in a room like this, that's the whole tournament.
Right, exactly. I think there's just such a difference in player quality. I think if you attend, local tournaments, league challenges, league cups, maybe even regionals, you might play against someone who's new to the game, or maybe they haven't quite figured everything out, or they're just here for fun. But when you're in the World Championships in general, but especially day 2, that each player is going to be, these are the top 100 and X amount of players in the world. They're not going to make obvious mistakes. They're going to come prepared. And this is truly a clash of the titans here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for Bert, he will have to throw away a welder because he did not have any fire energy in his hand. But with that Denene change, is able to get a giant earth, and from that, more fire energy into his hand.
2 fire energy now. Had the Denene change all those cards away, as you said. So what is? I know you're pretty familiar with the Mewtwo Toolbox deck. Not really this exact version, but what is this deck trying to do in the early turns in a general sense?
So Bert plays, if it's the same as Robin's from before, it plays a lot of Hapu and then Welder, and then just other discard outlets. So the Giant Earth, Denene, GX, and you discard your attackers that you wouldn't really be able to get into play because they're stage 1, stage 2s, and other different GX Pokemon. Charge up your Mewtwo and Mew, and then you just clean sweep from there. You have a bunch of different attacks for different matchups. You have the Latios GX with that Tag Purge, being able to do 120 and prevent tag team Pokemon from dealing damage to it. It's great versus other tag team decks. Here, it's actually all right because it's 3 energy for 120. That knocks out everything in Azul's deck.
And speaking of Azul's deck, this may be the one that players are a little bit more confused by. A lot of these cards we haven't seen in competitive play before, and maybe we haven't seen this style of deck before. So can you tell us a little bit about what Azul is doing differently compared to the rest of the field or compared to a normal Pokemon deck?
Well, hey, Pidgey is shining yet again, I believe, since the LBS days from before.
That was even before my time.
But so he is looking to get set up with that Professor Elm's lecture. he will be able to search for essentially his whole deck except for a Rangaroo, Articuno GX, and the Giraffe Rig. Other than that, the Pidgey and Pidgeotto have 50 and 60 HP respectively. That is your draw engine for the deck. So even if he's stuck going Professor Elm's Lecture turn 1, Professor Elm's Lecture turn 2, that's an insane hand.
And this actually, the interaction that just happened on screen was something really important we saw in the first time we featured this deck with Jimmy and Robin in round 1, is that Crushing Hammer, you want to remove the psychic energy. You don't really care about the fire energy that much. They can accelerate all that. So it really, I think a lot of the plays in that first round, so what came down to can Azul get heads on Crushing Hammer?
Yeah, and there we see Azul discarding that Articuno GX from the Giant Earth. Won't be able to get anything from it, not playing any fire energy, but really just getting his hand down so he can draw an extra card or two with that custom catcher in his hand, because his hand, not really good outside of that. Does have a Pidgeotto for next turn, though.
So what does the Articuno do for this deck? Because we've been talking about how this deck doesn't play on the same axis. It's not really about attacking. It's just about removing resources. How does the Articuno fit into that?
Yeah, so the Articuno GX is really, it can attack. They do play a bunch of water, like I think 2 water energy for sure, but it's really in there for that Cold Crush GX, being able, for 1 energy, being able to discard all energies from both active Pokemon. So in Bert's type of strategy where he's just going to load up this 1 Mewtwo and then use a bunch of different attacks from it, it could spell disaster, but with the discard there, Bert knows it could be coming and could be a possibility.
And again, there's not going to be much of a surprise factor here. I think is something that Azul may have been relying on because of that round 1 feature match. So Bert's going to know exactly what he needs to do, exactly how to play this game.
And that is cute from Bert. He has the energy or cycle system to pick up the psychic energy from his discard. Now he's able to attach it again, and Crushing Hammer was for naught. He now just needs a way to retreat from the active spot, and he'll be able to start attacking and putting pressure on this game. Otherwise, Azul will have a few more turns to try to build his setup.
Again, it is very possible that even though this deck is trying to kind of control the game and slow things down, it's possible that your opponent, the opponent being Bert in this case, can actually just come in from under you and just start attacking and start taking knockouts and run through your board.
Yeah, well, and it's also a very different strategy than we saw Robin play it too, because we saw a lone Mewtwo Mew GX, charge it up, nothing really else going on. But Bert, the way his draws have been, he's had a Dedenne GX twice this game, also benched that Espeon and Deoxys GX. So he's going to have to play around maybe a couple custom catcher like stall tactics from Azul here.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of playing into Azul's hands here, but of course didn't really have many other options. Obviously, Bert has a game plan, thinks it'll be okay. We'll have to see how that turns out over the course of this game. Top player versus top player. Pokegear finds a welder.
And again, this is the turn that Bert really needs. Like, he just needs to be able to attack and put on some pressure. And so far, I don't see a way for him to do that. Has he played a supporter? I don't think so.
Like he's considering which.
Yeah, this is awkward. So he has the welder for the 1 energy to guarantee the retreat, or he was thinking about the Bills analysis to try to get a switching card off the top 7 of the deck, but opts for the guaranteed route over the possible whiff.
Yeah, the more risky one.
Plus 30 for each one against Psychic.
All right, so he is using Psychic Club from Espeon and Deoxys GX, taking the knockout there.
And of course, we'll try to be clear that Mew and Mewtwo GX, of course, is using attacks from a Pokemon in the bench or the discard pile. So we, hopefully, Bert will communicate with you all clearly, and then hopefully we, using commentary and the cards on your screen, will be able to communicate with which attacks are being used and what exactly is going on. Can be kind of a difficult thing to follow.
This is a pretty awkward hand from Azul, but could deem super powerful. Pidgeotto, Lieutenant Surge, and Custom Catcher being able to draw 3 cards now, and he still has 2 supporters he can play for the turn. Just does he get the supporters? Well, I think I see a Professor Elm's Lecture and a Cynthia in his hand. Pretty insane.
Yeah, going to go through a lot of his deck here using the ability on the Pidgeot as well as things like Acro Bike, and you saw him use that 1 custom catcher, just cash it in for 3 cards. Didn't really have much of a choice there. Looks like we're resolving an Acro Bike here. Can't see what the other card is. The first card is a water energy. Looks like he's going to put that right into the discard pile.
Looked like Brock's Grit was the choice there. And Brock's Grit putting back the Articuno and the Mew. Both of those cards are pretty important in this matchup because remember, being able to use different GX attacks means he has a lot of stuff he can choose from. One of those is the Naganadel GX, being able to snipe for 170 damage for 4 energy.
Yeah, one of the best possible uses there. We did see Brock's Grit, one of the, sad to say, but one of the best recovery cards that we have left in the format. Going to shuffle those cards back in right into a Tate and Liza. 5 fresh cards for Azul. Has not used fan mail yet either, so he still has a lot of digging to do.
Fan mail? More like air mail.
Air mail, rather.
Gets another Lieutenant Surge off that Pokegear 3.0, possibly setting up for another big next turn. He has not really been able to get anything going. This deck, great at getting out Pidgeys and Pidgeotos, but really hard to find those Oranguru. Only having something like Pokemon Communication to search for it.
And now we see airmail being used there. Crushing Hammer.
Heads again.
Psychic Energy hitting the discard pile. Azul trying to run his opponent out of resources.
Yeah, and another thing we haven't seen from Azul this game so far has been those power plants. Jimmy was doing great work with that Stadium card round 1, especially against something like this Mewtwo and Mew GX deck.
Yeah, definitely now we see Azul getting rid of that Professor Elm's lecture to the Giant Hearth on the board, just getting rid of a card in his hand, shuffling through his deck, making sure he knows exactly what's prized, what's left in the contents of his deck. But he just is forced to pass with a Pidgey in the active position.
Oh no, this is not what you want to see if you're a Azul fan. Really just not doing anything here, not being able to find the cards in the specific order he needs to, and really is just letting his opponent get prizes each turn and hoping to draw into what he needs.
It is possible for this deck to let your opponent take a bunch of prizes and then just kind of shut them out and completely lock them down. But it's just hard when the prizes that they're taking are the Pidgeys and are your setup Pokemon that kind of keep your engine going, keep the game flowing for you. So Azul is in a very tough position here, even though there's only one prize actually taken for Bert here.
Acrobike discards the switch. I think the fire was on top. Has the replacement Psychic in his hand, so he will be able to take another knockout here. And Bert is doing exactly what he needs to do to try to take this game away.
And there is the knockout. 4 prizes remaining for Bert. Only one Pidgeotto on the board for Azul. And if you're familiar with this sort of deck at all, you know that you really need those abilities to be consistently used. You know, if you could use 4 air mails in a turn, you would, just going through your deck, trying to get the best cards possible, and before eventually resetting your deck entirely with a Oranguru.
Yeah, so I think we're going to spin the wheel again. Azul has Lieutenant Surge's strategy, Professor Elms, and a Cynthia in his hand. So discard that Elms. Doesn't really need more Pidgeotos right now. Needs to find a Oranguru, Giraffe, anything like that.
Will he be able to find it here? Really unfortunate spot for Azul to be in, but there's still a lot of Pokemon left to be played. And this is similar to the other control decks. We talked a little bit about Shedinja yesterday, probably the most popular known control deck going into this tournament. Can Azul afford to lose a game 1, or is it kind of like the traditional control decks where you really need to win the first game?
Oh, especially with this one, it's really hard. You can start attacking with a Oranguru or Articuno as your only real outs to deal damage. I do believe they play a Shrine of Punishment, but even then, that's just waiting a bunch of turns.
Yeah,
so it'll really come down to Azul needs to take this game or he'll be playing for the tie.
The losing game 1 here is not what Azul wants. He already has a tie, does not want to add another one. Tie would probably make him just have to completely win out here.
Yeah, and again, the thing that happens when you keep building up these ties on your record is you end up playing against more people who also have ties on their record, which in turn could mean slower decks.
Right.
Maybe another Pidgeotto mirror match.
Right, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. We see the Acrobike does get rid of the Giraffe because he wants to get Pokegear instead.
And there's another Cynthia off that Pokegear. A lot of those cards he would have loved to see in his hand. Pokemon Communication to be one of those for sure.
Just has to take the Cynthia here. Crushing Hammer. Can he hit another head? Ooh, it's off the screen. We can't see. No.
No. All right, he finally nets an Oranguru, though. Having to attach for the turn to the active Pidgeotto just so he can retreat is a little bit detrimental. And here we go with the Cynthia.
You never want to have to waste an energy attachment like that, but you have to do what you have to do. Azul's definitely playing from the back foot.
Yeah, really looking for an Articuno GX here just to try to stymie Bert's setup a little bit with the Cold Crush GX. Although with Bert, knowing him and knowing the matchup, he might be saving a couple of Welder in his hand. Ooh, 2 Power Plant, though. Exactly what you need. And the Articuno as well.
All right, so things may have just turned around here for Azul. Find some very important cards. Going to take a second to inspect the discard piles of each player. But this may be the turning point in the match, or in the game for him.
Yeah, he'll need to stick with this right. Articuno GX first because you still want to use its ability. Then you go Power Plant. And we'll see a Cold Crush GX here and put Bert to 0 energy in play. We do know he has 1 in hand, but that Giant Earth won't be long for this field.
Yeah.
Oh, he already used the Giant Earth.
Yeah, he used the Lecture earlier to Earth. It doesn't really change anything. But obviously you can't, take those actions. So Judge quickly finding that, and now the Hearth is out of the way.
There's the Power Plant, exactly what he needs this turn. He just needs Bert to not attack him for a couple turns so we can get more Pidgeotto set up and start resource management to essentially fix his draws for the rest of the game.
Right, and this is what we were saying, is that you can afford to, go down in prizes, have your opponent take a bunch of knockouts, and then just lock them out of the game, which is what Azul's still trying to do, so he's not out of it yet.
Yeah, he still has 3 more prizes to work with until it's really down to the wire. And wow, looking at Bert's hand, he does have the replacement stadium, so he will be able to follow that up with discards the Solgaleo GX. And that is one of the good ones here, being able to Turbo Strike for 2 energy to take a knockout on most Orangurus and stuff. Not the Articuno GX, but also able to charge up his bench.
Yeah, so perfect find there was a Giant Hearth, immediately getting rid of that Power Plant, gaining Bert some advantage, turning back on his Mew and Mewtwo.
All right, well, where is the Welder with this Pokegear? It does not find it. I believe he has at least another Pokegear in his hand, maybe 2 more.
Does he not have a Welder in his hand?
I don't believe so.
All right, he's going to have to go digging then.
Yeah, has at least that second Pokegear 3.0 in his hand. Where is the Welder?
No. Oh, there it is.
is.
All right. Bert does find the Welder, and everything that Azul worked so hard to do last turn has just kind of been undone here. Great find there from Bert. Welder, 2 energy. Let's draw 3 cards, go through almost my entire deck.
Even gets a Stadium 4 next turn if another Power Plant hits play, and we're going to see a Turbo Strike here, charging up probably the Espeon Deoxys.
And look, he's just being very clear about using the Solgaleo attack, putting some energy there, just as you predicted on the Espeon and Deoxys tag team.
Pays to be right.
Azul starting his turn now. I believe Acrobike was the top deck. We're going to see an Airmail immediately.
I'll do it like this if you don't mind.
Did not see what he took off that Airmail, but put Professor Elm's Lecture to the bottom, and there's a reset stamp. Ooh, Oranguru. That's a good choice.
Yep, Oranguru is a very good choice indeed. Pokegear here. Top 7 cards.
And no supporter here from Azul.
Pokegear not being kind to these players, but that's the risk you take when you try to smooth out your consistency a bit with a random card like Pokegear.
I miss Random Receiver, man.
Oh, I mean, Random Receiver would change this a lot.
There's the Giant Earth now discarding that second Giraffe Rig.
Azul taking a second just to make sure.
Like,
okay, I haven't done
it's
this,
right now, right?
I haven't done this. It's actually not that important. I don't want to get a game lost for it.
Oh, that would be heartbreaking.
Surprise, surprise, Giant Hearth finds nothing again.
Where are all Azul's fire energy?
There's the reset stamp. We saw reset stamp be really the kind of key player in a lot of matches in this tournament. Bert just going to 4 here, so hopefully he'll be able to draw out of it. But importantly, it does reset that stadium. He had a stadium in his hand to bump the power plant. He's not going to be able to. He may not be able to rather actually deal with that. Power plant can be absolutely backbreaking for this Mew and Mewtwo deck.
Yeah, so let's see if this reset stamp to 4 will pay dividends or not. Looks like there's a Bill's Analysis there. That's one of the perfect cards to get a replacement stadium, or you can just draw a Giant Earth from the top of your deck and start attacking again once more.
Never didn't have it. Bert Wolters, ladies and gentlemen.
Never punished.
There's an attachment onto the Espeon and Deoxys.
And we'll see another Turbo Strike, and I think we might be nearing that huge GX attack from Espeon Deoxys, dropping 20 damage counters on Azul's board.
There's only 2 prizes remaining for Bert. We'll have to earn these 2 the old-fashioned way, just taking 1 prize at a time. But with all this energy on the board, I suspect he won't have an issue doing so. And this is actually one of the important cards from Azul's deck that hasn't really come up yet, is that Mars.
Yeah. The Mars is one thing we saw Jimmy. Ooh, discards the Psychic Energy. I believe he didn't have another energy in his hand, so he'll still need 1 more to actually take the game.
Well, may actually have taken a complete turn off for Bert there, getting that Psychic Energy.
Airmail coming from Azul. Finally has 2 Pidgeotto in play. Or no, that was the Acrobatic. So many of the same effects.
Yeah, he has. Looks like he has used both air mails, but oh no, he's just gonna go ahead and concede. He just says, nope, I
did
can't
not
actually
have
do anything.
The replacement stadium, so another energy would have came down, and even just dropping the 20, knocking out both the Pidgeotto, spells game.
Lots of options for the Mew and Mewtwo deck. That's kind of what the point of the toolbox deck is to just say, I have an answer for everything. I have cards for every matchup, and Bert showed that pretty effortlessly there. I feel like Azul just never really got set up. Maybe this deck just isn't actually panning out for them. Azul and Pramawat have gotten to the 2-0-1 record, but maybe versus the top players, now that they know what they're doing, now that the metagame is they're in the winner's metagame now, maybe it's just not good enough.
Yeah, well, you see it there. It's just they've had problems with setting up in the first place. Azul not really getting his engine going. In these past control decks with Oranguru, you've seen Zeep Strike a lot. Being able to discard your hand, draw 4. It's a constant draw, but you have to discard your hand. So it was really weak to reset stamp, especially when it came out. That's why they moved to Pidgeotto. You still get to keep a big hand, but it's just takes a little bit more time to dig through your deck. And we see that here is just Azul didn't have enough time to stave off Bert.
Yeah, and also much more reliant on having multiple Pidgeotto set up.
Yeah.
If you think about Zep Strike is going to get you 4 cards. Pidgeotto is only getting you 1. It's giving you a choice, but you really need, we saw in some of Jimmy's matches earlier where he was just having 3 or 4 airmails at the same time, just digging through his deck as much as possible. That takes a lot of setup, something that Azul was not successful in getting in Game 1. Will Game 2 be different between 2 of the top players in the world? Azul will go first.
Has 3 supporter prized, but starts that Oranguru, something he never attacked with last game. He never resource management last game, and that is the heart of the deck.
Yeah, Oranguru is the kind of key. The Pidgeotto is what makes this deck actually, find all of its resources, and then the important cards like Mars and Crushing Hammer would disrupt your opponent. But the Oranguru is what makes sure that you don't actually lose. It's what cycles back in your most important cards, and has been a key player, been the role player in these control decks since it's been around.
Yeah, and then there is the Professor Elms lecture for 3 Pidgey, the full Queen's Gambit here. Doesn't want a repeat of what happened last game. Has a Pidgeotto in hand as well as a Pokegear, but decides if he wants to play it or not. Even the energy. There's the power plant. Pretty good, especially since Bert exploded the first couple of turns with Denine GX after Denine GX. So it could force him to play a few stadiums. But again, anytime you're playing a stadium for no effect, when your opponent has that replacement stadium, it is heartbreaking.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's definitely a reason to hold that power plant there and just say, if you want to go off with the Dene, you can, but I want to make sure that my stadiums are bumping your stadiums. I don't know the stadium count in both decks. I don't know exactly which each is on, but you definitely, it's a big, big way, big important factor in playing stadiums is being able to knock out your opponent's stadium and kind of win that stadium war, as we call it.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things going into this brand new format is you lost Field Blower. That was the biggest card against stadiums and tools, and now the only way to really interact with your opponent's stadiums is either the Mars Shadow, being able to resetting hole, or just play a bunch of your own stadiums, and you see decks play 4 or 5 now.
Yeah, exactly. I love when stadiums are relevant in the format. And I suspect this game and the rest of this match, if it continues to a third game, will be largely about stadiums. We should Cherish Ball, find Mew and Mewtwo GX, then Big Welder, 2 energy, onto that bench GX.
Man, so far, the all-star of this weekend has been that supporter Welder, enabling at least 3 to 4 different decks throughout everything, and just cheating energy into play. We keep saying it, but it's that good.
Yeah, that absolutely is very, very good. Is the story of this tournament for sure. Is going to be a major player throughout the rest of its time in the standard format, undoubtedly.
And there is a third energy for the turn. I don't know if he'll have an attack here. Oh, he does. The Macargo GX. Lava Flow. Discard any number of basic energy from this Pokemon. Does 50 for each one you discard.
So getting rid of that.
50 plus. So 150, discard 2.
Getting rid of the Oranguru. Getting rid of some of his own energy, too, which can be a problem in this matchup, but just deciding, you know what, the Oranguru is too important. I need to knock it out. And I want you to be promoting these Pidgeys, and I want to get a shot at those.
Man, I want to see Bert beat someone with that GX attack. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck. Go.
Go. Oh, draw, you lose.
And that actually could come up in this matchup, too, if it gets low enough.
Oh, definitely. You resource management back a couple of cards. So how many cards do you have in your deck now? Oh, 4? Perfect. See some airmailing and some acro biking going on here.
Pokegear from Azul as well. Definitely needs to find a supporter. Tate and Liza is one, but it's not the best one you can possibly have.
And in that 7 cards, we saw a copy of the card Chip Chip Ice Axe. Can you explain a little bit about what that does for Azul's deck and how that helps him win?
Yeah, so it was first featured in the Oranguru Shedinja stall deck from the regionals past before, where it kind of took over the place of Hiker. Hiker was a supporter. Look at your top 5 cards of either player's deck. Choose one to keep on top, shuffle the rest. You did it so they could combo with Trumbeak to remove a supporter from their deck, especially like a Broxgrid or something if it was a mirror. Now it's just, I'm going to control your draws. So Azul, if he actually gets the lock set up, he's just going to be playing, all right, this turn I'm going to Chip Ice Axe because you have no hand because I've double Mars for the past few turns, reset stamp you. So once you're able to control your opponent's top decks, you know what's going to be in their hand and what they're going to draw. You can even discard that stuff later on with Mars as well. It just buys you more turns, and that's what this deck needs, is more turns. Yeah,
hopefully we will get to see this deck kind of assemble the combo and kind of show you what it can do, because I think game 1 was didn't really show you much of anything. Azul just kind of made a bunch of actions that didn't result in anything. But when this deck gets going and this deck has the quote-unquote lock up, it's very, very powerful and just absolutely destroys the opponent.
All right, well, here we see a pass. No way to retreat that Pidgey, and Oranguru with the energy on it is ready to resource management next turn, but it is up to Bert to see if he'll have an attack. Yeah, with that double custom catcher as well, bringing up that Espeon and Deoxys GX, kind of just hoping, okay, maybe you don't have a way out of the active or a way to even welder Psychic Energy to the active and take a knockout.
Just trying to cut Bert off of gaining any traction in this game.
Well, looking at Bert's hand, he does not have the welder, and that is good news for Azul here. Bert will not be able to attack this turn with much of anything, especially with the top 7 not looking too fruitful with those trainer cards.
Yeah, not a whole lot of great options here.
You know it's so bad when you build analysis for 2 Pokegear because you couldn't hit a welder.
Yeah, one of these Pokegear will most likely hit a welder, but he's still just basically taking this turn off as far as advancing the board state goes.
Yeah, we'll probably just see an attachment to the benched Mewtwo here. does have the Psychic Energy, could choose to attach that to the active, maybe just hope for the Welder next turn. But then you run the risk of Crushing Hammer coming down. So yeah, it goes for the Fire on the benched Mewtwo. I like that play.
And just passing the turn back, Azul still trying to get everything set up, get his combo assembled, misses on the Pokegear.
Again, that Pokegear was hard, but does have a backup Tate and Liza to draw 5 cards. Again, this Glorified Shauna is not the best supporter for you, but it's going to do work.
And Recycle Energy is actually really good here, too. It's a kind of a surprisingly powerful card where it's just like, all right, well, you know, I can use this to retreat, and then it just goes right back to my hand, so I haven't committed an energy. I'm still going to have more to retreat or more to attach later in the game.
Yeah, and the one downfall of Bert taking those prizes with that Macargo GX attack is he did discard 2 energy, so he kind of put himself behind a little bit. And Azul now with the extra turn seemed to be firing off on all cylinders and will get a resource management off this turn.
Yeah, we see multiple Pidgeotos in play. We have that Pidgey going to leave the discard pile here. Crushing Hammer, perhaps setting Bert further behind in energy.
Looks like a
no,
Tails.
He will not.
Power Plant coming down.
Right.
Although I do believe Bert has another Stadium in hand. Oh, no, he doesn't. He does have a Bills to try to find it. But again, if you're playing a Bills, that's not a Welder.
Azul could be putting something together here. Looks like Power Plant will be the first choice for resource management. Deciding between Crushing Hammer and 2 custom catchers here.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. 2 custom catchers just because you want to be able to bring up this Espeon Deoxys again, especially with how Bert has been drawing his cards. Draws an Electromagnetic Radar, one of the cards that you wouldn't really think would go in here, but discarding 2 cards is actually pretty beneficial when you play a lot of GXs that you want to get in the discard. And searching for a Denene GX is always pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Actually fits right in, although you wouldn't think it would. And you see the resource management put those 3 cards on the bottom of the deck. Much later on in the game, if Azul is able to execute the strategy, what we're going to see is maybe him having no cards in the deck, and he'll immediately start drawing those cards, or at least so few that the resource management cards will immediately be found with an airmail. So right for now, he's just kind of putting those cards back and saying, I want these resources available to me later, but soon it'll come down to, okay, what do I need for the next turn?
Yeah, well, Pokegear finally hits the nail on the head. Welder for Bert here, but I think he only has that 1 Fire Energy.
Finds another one off the draw, so you can attach it to the active there.
So we're probably going to see a retreat, and then if that Solgaleo GX is in the discard again, we could see another Turbo Strike. But no attacker really, and no Stadium to replace that Power Plant. So Azul again squeaking by with another turn, and we could see him turn the corner here.
Lieutenant Surge's strategy allowing him to play 2 more supporter cards. He's going to take, the first one's going to be a Professor Elm's Lecture, and there we go. He is setting everything he needs up now.
All right, and so this is what Azul needed to see. The thing now is, can he finish the game with enough time? Because even though there's 18 minutes left, enough for a normal game, this game could take that whole time, especially with Bert doing a lot of actions trying to figure out the rest of his prizes.
Oh, it absolutely could.
Oh, this is tough. Acrobike or Power Plant off this Airmail. Opts for that Power Plant. Again, it's just such a good card in this matchup. Azul's hand looking pretty good here, and again, he's a little confident. Oh, double Crushing Hammer, no. He will be able to get it back, but you always want to just get as many of those in your hand as possible, especially since it's just a coin flip card.
Yeah, discarding 1 definitely hurts there. You see Azul discard the Crushing Hammer, and you got to think, wow, what good do you want to take over that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, spoilers, it's another Crushing Hammer. We could see it on the bench. Used on the bench Mewtwo and Mew GX, although both are 1 Psychic away from attacking, although the Espeon and Deoxys GX won't be able to take the knockout in the active. Heads, yeah, and this is the decision you need to make. For me, I think the right play is the Mewtwo, and Azul seems to agree.
You have 1 Fire Energy down. Azul getting pretty fortunate heads flips on these Crushing Hammers when it matters.
Yeah, and unfortunately, too, Azul has that Ditto. Did not have another Pidgey in his deck because it was knocked out earlier. You do not want to bench the Ditto Prism, especially staring down an Espeon Deoxys with 2 energy on it, because if they choose to just cross division, you can knock out Ditto and a Pidgeotto with just that 10 damage counters.
And we see the Crushing Hammer, and Pal Pad recycled. So almost went for the triple Crushing Hammer, but decided, you know what, I'll actually resource management back in this Pal Pad just to be able to find more supporters as the game goes long.
All right, Cherish Ball from Bert. Grabs a Mewtwo and Mew GX, but again, I don't know what he really has going for him here. That power plant, again, shutting down a lot of his options. Does he have 2 Psychic Pokemon? He does! All right, so with that Psychic Energy in his hand, he'll be able to Psychic Club and take the knockout, dealing a ton of damage.
Well, so pretty fortunate there to have both Psychic Pokemon in his hand, knock out the Oranguru, and kind of put Azul on the back foot again.
Yeah, and it's an exclusive club, but those who get in, it's pretty good.
Looks like the judges are just checking something. Yeah,
it deals 130 damage.
Making sure it works how it's supposed to, which it does, of course.
This is the first airmail from Azul here this turn.
And now we're just in the spot where we're trying to say, well, you know, Azul basically cannot win the match, right? He is just trying to extend this game for as long as possible to prevent Bert from winning, to try to go for the tie here. And Bert is saying, well, I've already done what I need to do. All I need to do is just win. All I need to do is win one more, or just extend this game long enough to where I can win a 1-0 victory.
All right, and Azul here benches the Articuno GX, attaches the water energy to it. And now, since there's no real threat of the cross-division GX coming down from Bert, he decides to bench that Ditto Prism, hoping to evolve it into a Pidgeotto next turn. And we're going to see a Cold Crush GX coming from Azul here in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, never fear. Articuno is going to be moved into the active position. Going to get rid of all of that energy built up.
Draws into another Crushing Hammer. Also has an Acrobike and a couple Airmail left. Oranguru, good pickup. Reset Stamp as well. This could be pretty good here, especially you could save that Reset Stamp. Bert's not really been doing much here. And then if he does get the knockout on the Articuno GX, then you Reset Stamp, and you're like, okay, now it's pretty good.
Rushing Hammer.
Tails, but this is a big one here. Yes.
And he is going to wipe the board of energy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good turn here from Azul, but 14 minutes left remaining.
Yeah, the real question is, can Azul actually win? Because remember, Bert is up a game. So if the game just goes long here, we'll actually end up with a win in Bert's favor.
And that's not what you want to see if you're an Azul GG fan, but he is playing for the tie essentially here. And there is the Cold Crush. Energy is gone. 4 brand new cards for Bert. 5th one for the turn. Does hit a stadium off the 4 cards, the Viridian City. Just depends what else he has.
My Viridian Forest in play. Goodbye, Power Plant. My abilities are active again.
Oh, and with that, he has the Cherish Ball. Could search for that Denene GX to be able to discard his hand and draw 6 brand new cards. So
Reset Stamp, if anything, just helped Bert out here as it can when you're Reset Stamping to fairly high numbers.
And looking through Bert's deck, he actually only has 1 Welder left. That is the only way for him to actually attack in 1 turn. So unless he draws that, he won't be able to get an attack off this turn.
We're going to see a big Dede change here.
Another Cherish Ball hitting the bin. Either choosing to thin out his deck of a GX to discard, or thin out his hand so he can custom catcher for 1 card. But nope, there is the Dragonite GX. Definitely something you don't want to draw into off this Denene for sure.
Yeah, especially when it works in the discard pile just as well. You'd rather just take it and make sure that it's both where you want it and not where you don't want it.
Oh, does opt for that custom catcher for 1, drawing into the electromagnetic radar, but again, that's not something you want to draw into, so good for him.
He did hit the Welder.
Welder and a Fire Energy Still has not used the Viridian Forest, so he will be able to Welder for the full 2 if he wants to, but I don't think he'll be able to attack this turn. Grabs the Psychic Energy. There really is no good pivot Pokemon in this Mewtwo and Mew toolbox deck. All the guys have pretty much big retreat costs. You do have the Latios GX that has free retreat, but when something like this Espeon and Deoxys is stuck active, it is pretty rough to deal with.
And Bert is just forced to pass there. You see Welders on to the Mew and Mewtwo, and then just passes the turn back. Can't really make any leeway, cannot retreat, can't attack. Is just kind of winding the clock down here.
And right away, Azul gets a power plant off the first air mails 2 more times after that, and he's going to need to start playing a little bit faster here, too. 11 minutes to go left in this match. Still down a game.
Yeah, still down a game. We'll need to actually win this game in order to at least tie the series up even, and then he'll need to win another one, which probably just isn't possible with his strategy of deck to actually win the match.
Again, just getting cards out of his deck that he doesn't want to draw so he can make his deck as consistent as possible, finding those Crushing Hammers, finding those Reset Stamps, finding the Chip Ice Axe, and finding the Power Plants as well.
Debating whether to play the Power Plant. Going for a Crushing Hammer first.
And there's
another
a Tails. Power Plant hits the board. Again, Azul here not having a way to really retreat the Articuno GX in the active spot. And it looks like he's going to Professor Elm's Lecture for that last Pidgeotto. 4 Pidgeotto in play now for Azul here. Finally has some semblance of a setup, but is it too late?
I mean, I just think it has to be, right? Is there an actual way that he can finish this game and go on to another one? Or can he even finish this game? That's my question.
It looks like he can, especially just because a lot of these toolbox type decks don't play a lot of copies of Shuffle Draw, like Cynthia, Tate and Liza, or Judge, something like that. So really what they have is what they have, and they're not really going to reset their hand a lot.
All right, so is Azul going to manage to get this draw here, win this game, or will Bert be able to run down the clock and take the 1-0 victory?
There's a Psychic Energy on the active and a pass. And now Azul will need to kick it into overdrive. Essentially has what he wants, but again, he's looking for Tate and Liza to be able to switch this Articuno out.
And he does find one.
And there we go.
Okay, it looks like maybe I was wrong about what it was. I think he took the wrong.
No, it was Tate and Liza. He put the Pal Pad on the bottom.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw the different card switch around.
He also got another card he needed in Lieutenant Surge's strategy. So now he'll be able to Surge Tate and Liza and play another supporter like a Mars if he chooses.
All right, so now this is where Azul is really going off here. This is what he's wanted to do all match. We're going to see a double Custom Catcher. Can't decide quite where he's going to take that Mew and Mewtwo with no energy on it. There's the Oranguru. Recycle energy.
Yeah, basically like, oh, your Mewtwo and Mew has 2 retreat costs? Okay, cool. I'll bring that up. Maybe I can stall you for a couple more turns, get this resource management going, and then from then we'll probably see a couple double Mars turns.
Here is the resource management Custom Catcher reset stamp. The third card will be Power Plant, of course.
Oh, looking at that Pal Pad. Again, he's gone through a lot of resources and spent the last couple of turns not being able to resource management because of that Articuno GX. So he will need some of those supporters back, like the Lieutenant Surge.
Yeah, locking your opponent out of the game with supporters is a very important part of the strategy. There's a Giant Hearth double Custom Catcher.
All right, here we go. Bert is going to have to really rely on this Custom Catcher to try to draw into a few cards here. Although I don't know what he can really hit that helps him too much here. There's the Giant Earth. Fails the search. Custom Catcher, draw 3 cards. But again, he is just doing what he needs to. He's playing cards down, trying to figure out ways to take prizes, but in doing so, he is taking time off the clock here.
Yeah, there's 3 cards. Pokegear, Psychic Energy didn't quite make out the 3rd card for Bert.
Yeah, missed the switch, and that could have spelled doom for Azul here. But again, Azul has escaped by another turn without getting a knockout taken from him.
But we are, which is about 6 minutes left on the clock in this match. Passing back to Azul. Now Azul gets to do the things he wants to do. Has that Articuno, of course, in the active position.
All right, there is the Pal Pad from Azul there. Gets it off that airmail. Be able to Pal Pad Lieutenant Surge back if he wants to, but has one in hand.
All right, there's the Lieutenant Surge. I'm going to go ahead and Pal Pad Tate and Liza and Surge itself back. So this is exactly kind of what Azul's deck is meant to do, which is just thin his deck out, have it be just the resources he needs. Use Mars to discard cards from his opponent's hand. He discards.
It did not draw the other Mars. So he won't be able to discard the Psychic Energy in his hand, but has another Pal Pad. So he could airmail into the Mars as well. But also looking for that Tate and Liza, so he'll be able to switch and resource management this turn.
Yeah, an important part of the strategy is being able to resource management.
There's Tate and Liza. Could opt for Reset Stamp. Reset Stamp actually decking Bert out here quite fast. Bert has 4 prizes remaining still, so he's going to draw 3 extra cards with it.
I think, did he have 5 cards left in his deck?
I believe there's 5, so we'll have like a couple turns, which is enough time for Azul to take the game.
Yeah, especially, looks like Azul may have just actually found victory here.
Oh, he actually got the Team Galactic's Mars too, so that takes another card away from Bert here. Discard that Psychic Energy in your hand.
Takes every single card away.
And I believe now the Reset Stamp will have Bert draw 4 cards, and that will leave him with 1 card left, so he'll be able to survive 1 more turn. But with that Psychic Energy gone, I don't think he has enough to even take a knockout here.
Yeah, I think we're just going to see a draw pass, and then Azul will immediately draw pass as well.
Oh, no.
Wait.
But we could see the switch into the Macargo GX attack to take the deck out win. Oh, Bert, come on. You can do it. Burning Magma GX. I want to see it so bad.
Is that does he have that option available to him? Does he have the switch?
Yeah, he had the switch in his deck. Remember, he was searching for it last turn.
I guess he just drew his whole deck, right?
Yeah. So he drew his whole deck, energy or cycle system. He only needs a fire energy, and he has that giant Hearth in play. 2 cards left in deck.
He knows. We
will see it right here. Doesn't even need the switch. He just needs a fire energy. Oh, Bert knows he has it. He's just making sure. He's like, okay, I got this. Don't mess up. I have the win right here. Just checking every single thing, taking your time. Wow.
Has not used the GX attack yet. There's the
switch. I'll just pull it out. Burning Magma GX.
It all just comes down to whether or not he sees it. Bert is one of the best players in the world. I don't have any doubt that he does. But no.
No. And he goes with the Turbo Strike. 120 damage, charging up the Mewtwo and Mew GX on his bench. Ah, I'm so disappointed.
We did not see that big burning magma. Perhaps we'll see it next turn. He did shuffle back in some energy cards, so he is not completely out of this game quite yet, as we have just over 3 minutes remaining.
And now the Burning Magma play seems a little out of reach. Lieutenant Surge and a Brock's Grit finally coming down. We'll be able to shuffle in 6 Pokemon and energy into his deck. But then again, I don't know if Azul sees the play either. So it could just be, well,
Is the Macargo in the discard pile? Do we know for sure?
It is. It's what he used to attack turn 1.
Oh, right. This was that game.
Yeah.
All right, Lieutenant Surge, first supporter is or second supporter, I guess, of the turn is the Brock's Grit.
Yeah, and then we're going to see the Tate and Liza switch to resource management. It'll just depend on how many cards are left in Azul's deck and if Bert sees it.
I want to say there was 4 there.
Oh, and he used the switch too, so double custom catcher could spell disaster for Bert here. 3 cards left in deck, and we actually know the 3 cards. It's Fire, Fire, Psychic.
Yep. And there is the Tate and Liza switch into the Oranguru.
Oh, man. And there is the resource management. Reset stamp going back in the deck. That is going to be one of the ways for Azul to try to take the deck out knockout with only a minute or 2 left. And there we go. Now back to Bert. 2 cards left in deck, 4 in hand. He has to know he cannot play any cards in his hand down. So we'll see probably just another Turbo Strike for knockout.
Really tough position here.
Man, I'm sweating.
Yeah, and he's just going to go ahead and immediately do just what you said. Turbo Strike, there's a knockout. 3 prizes remaining, 1 minute left in this match. And again, remember the stakes are a lot higher for Azul here. Azul actually needs to finish this game to tie up the match, whereas Bert just needs to sit back and hope Azul cannot do that.
Yeah, and it's not looking good here for Azul. 5 cards in hand now. Reset stamp will only put Bert down to 3. The more prizes he takes, the less reset stamp's actually good here.
Yeah, it's got the reverse of the normal reset stamp mode.
Yeah, and Azul opting not to custom catcher last turn either to kind of stymie some of the setup, but there was no real good way. Everything has 1 retreat or 3 retreat and energy on it.
Right, exactly.
It looks like it is not enough for Azul here as time is running down the clock. 5 seconds to go. Kind of spells the writing.
You can see the writing on the wall. You can see the pain on Azul's face as he just says, "No, I'm not going to be able to get there."
I still want Bert to take it with that Burning Magma GX. There's enough cards in Azul's deck now.
The time has just been called. We're just talking about how the turn system works. Of course, Azul will be turn 0, Bert will be turn 1, so on and so forth until we've completed 3 turns.
Yeah, Azul sees the writing on the wall, still talking, still going to play it out. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe your opponent will do something that they shouldn't. But here is the PAL pad.
A really tough spot to be in if you're Azul. Just having to think, is there a way I can actually get this tie? Can I squeak it out, or will it just come down to my deck not winning game 1 and not able to get there?
Yeah, that's really what it seems like this deck is. Jimmy won game 1 pretty convincingly against Robin round 1, but then ended up losing a very quick game 2. And then game 3, Robin finally figured out how to play around against it. Seems Bert took that knowledge, already knew how to play around it, and then with Azul's stymied setup game 1, and then game 2 having the setup but playing it out to its fullest, will be able to take the match victory 1-0.
It looks like Azul is just going to extend the hand. Bert Wolters will take the victory here. We did not get to see it in the most stylish fashion.
I wanted
with
it.
That Mag Cargo. Oh, I know you wanted it, Jeremy. We all wanted it, but he just had to do things the old-fashioned way. Winning game 1, taking a 1-0 victory is Bert Wolters, one of the top-ranked players in the European region.